Podcast Network Asia.
When you check roadworthiness, we're not checking it to drive on a Sunday afternoon beautiful drive. We're not doing that. We're doing it because we want to have you driving in a typhoon-induced weather and you're hydroplaning. And I want you to be able to be safe for everyone else around you that you're driving with. Because that's the responsibility we all take when we buy a vehicle. Because we are sharing the roads with everybody else.
True. Hey folks, this is Kako Tirona.
And this is Gina Rufino.
You are listening to Torque of the Town. Welcome to another episode of Torque of the Town. It's Wednesday, which means Gino and I are back on air Wednesday morning. Great to see each other again. Normally we're in a happy mood and normally we're in a happy mood. But today we brought in a guest who is a little bit upset. And if he's upset, that means there's a lot of people out there that are upset. And when I upset, I mean like the way Steve Harvey said the wrong name. That's how pissed off people are. Or the first time people saw Jar Jar Binks. There are a lot of people
I like
upset.
Jar Jar.
Why?
I don't know. Well, anything that Star Wars comes out with, I actually enjoy.
Yeah, I understand that, but Jar Jar Binks?
Yeah.
I'm completely stunned here. You like Jar Jar Binks.
I wouldn't say I like Jar Jar. I wouldn't say I like Jar Jar, but I don't hate Jar Jar as much as other people do.
He was pointless.
I mean, he's for the kids.
Well, he was pointless like this conversation, so let's move on. What it is today is that I'm saying that there are a lot of people that are pissed off out there. We're talking about the MVIS, or the Motor Vehicle Inspection System, and more specifically the MVIC, or the Motor Vehicle Inspection Centers. There's been a lot of talk out there. There's been a couple of noise barrages. People are upset on that end, and there are people also upset on the other end of the spectrum, which means the owners of these motor vehicle inspection centers. And today's guest, we have a general manager of one of the testing centers that is in the NCR. So again, we're going to be talking about why people are upset at these things, and I guess let's try to find a common ground, a common solution to move forward, and why we actually should move forward. Now, a lot of people are voicing out opinions about some rumors that are going on out there that they did not test some cars properly. The timing is all wrong. The cost is like through the roof. So we're gonna tackle some of those issues right now with the owner of, like I said, of one of these inspection centers, Mr. Yogesh Sahijwani. He is the GM of one of the centers in NCR. Is that correct?
Yes. Hi,
Okay.
Carla.
Hi. Thanks for joining us today. Okay. So like I said, a lot of people are pissed off right now. Let's start off by explaining exactly what these centers are. There are some people out there that don't really realize what we're talking about right now. So we're talking about MVIS, or the Motor Vehicle Inspection System, which is carried out by the Motor Vehicle Inspection Centers, which you are a general manager one of. And talk us through this particular process.
So, I'll give you a little background on it. In 2018, DOTR and LTO decided to upgrade how we actually test roadworthiness of a vehicle.
Okay.
So currently, the current system, or the previous system, was emission testing centers.
Yeah.
Where they stick a tube into your tambucho or your exhaust.
I'm glad you said tambucho, man, because Gina was getting excited there.
No, right. So I mean, they stick it in the exhaust. You get the reading, right? You test it 6 times. You get a reading, and that's enough to register your vehicle.
That was then.
Right. So, in context, we are now testing more comprehensively. We are now checking the above carriage of your vehicle. We are now looking at your brakes. We are now looking at your headlights. We are now looking at also including of emission, because we also enjoy the clean air.
Yeah.
We are also looking at your suspension.
This is everything.
We are looking, yes. Basically, it's if I'm not mistaken, it's a 67 to 72 point test.
Wow.
So,
Jeez.
yeah, we check your early warning devices. We check your lights inside the passenger cabin. We check your doors if they're properly aligned. It's not a small test anymore. It's not something that you could just, take a minute or two to do. It's something that you need to prepare for.
I'm going to let you know right now. Do you guys go through the car with a black light? Because you don't want to do that with Gino's car. God knows what's been in that automobile.
Okay, no, we've been fortunate enough that we haven't been asked to go through that lens.
Oh, Gino, you're safe, buddy.
Yes,
I think I'm
yes.
good.
But what we do is we take a flashlight to the undercarriage of the car. We check your any of your leaks. We check basically the play of the car. And then we ensure that there's nothing that's off sound.
Correct.
And your car is completely roadworthy.
Correct.
So it's actually a 3-stage process. The first stage is the visual, above carriage, undercarriage.
Yeah.
Then you go into a speed test,
Okay.
which we compare your odometer reading as to the actual speed of the car.
Okay.
And then you do a side slip test, which basically tells you, gives you a general idea of your alignment of the car.
Yeah.
Then it gives you a brake test of the front and the rear.
Okay.
Then you do a suspension test. It's actually an adherence. We check everything from the tie rod to the whole suspension of how it works. So it's actually designed to avoid hydroplaning,
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
right? And then you go to the third stage. The third stage is headlights, emission,
Yeah.
and sound.
So it sounds like this thing. It sounds like this list is like a Bible. It's massive. How
Yes.
many pages is this book?
It's
man?
one page.
It's
It's
just one page.
just a bunch of check marks that you do. We just literally go through it. The test takes 12 minutes per vehicle. For a motorcycle, it's supposed to be 7 to 8 minutes. That's the tack time that's been set by LTO. Of course, it's achievable, but there are other things like waiting time and the long lines and whatsoever that we're going to be experiencing initially.
Yeah.
But theoretically, the test itself should take 12 minutes for a car or a light vehicle and 7 minutes for a motorbike.
Okay, so you're testing everything from basically from your tires to loose or unsecure dangerous parts that protrude from your vehicle, transmission to your emissions. Hey, I'm a poet. I didn't even know that. And even your seat belts and turn signals.
Yes.
And I heard that even the bocina needs to be consistent. Like you can't have horns like these anymore.
Well,
So you can't do that anymore? I'm
no,
going to miss that.
I will tell you, you can as long as it's below 99 decibels.
Oh, okay. So there's
I'm-
a chance.
I'm curious, who came up with all of these, I guess, points in the tests?
So I'm going to tell you that we are following international standards. We are one of the last countries in the world to implement something like this.
the last.
One of the last.
Jeez, that sucks.
I don't want to state on that on this, but yes, we are one of the last countries in the world to do it. In other countries, it's called MOT in Europe. If you go to Singapore and all of that, they have a different name for it, but
Okay.
they're all vehicle inspections, and they're all privately owned because they're massive.
Yeah.
And they are run day-to-day operations, and they have no issues so far with most of the concerns that we are currently handling now.
How long have they been in operation in other countries?
Wow. The MOT system has been around for like 20 years in Europe.
Wow.
The US. So I want to give you a small background of history. Our system should have been up running 20 years ago.
Sure.
It just so happened that at that time, funding was an issue. And what happened was they all stepped in and they made emission because of the climate problems that we were having. They made emission as the most important. So
Yeah.
basically, emission testing is the longest stopgap solution that we've had in this country. And now it's coming to an end, or at least it's being phased out for a more comprehensive test, as I said, because it's not, in my opinion at least, not directly affecting road safety. Because,
Understandable, yeah. Okay.
because
yeah.
I really don't see a lot of people, dying or getting hurt from emissions. People are getting hurt or people are getting to accidents because their brakes don't work.
Yeah.
They don't have the turn signals that they're pointing out that they're turning left,
Correct.
and then they got sideband. So yeah,
This-
I mean, it's definitely something that they really need to take into consideration.
Yeah, I mean, so this was never checked before? I can't believe it. Like,
No,
the-
because-
the turn signals, the headlights, I mean...
No, you've been just registering.
Yeah, we go to the
you-
registration office, the LTO, and you basically do an emissions test. Prior to that, a couple of years back, at least 2 decades ago, we'd go to the LTO. You just register your automobile. There were barely any tests then.
Yeah.
and that was
Wow.
2 decades ago. So now it's all about making sure that your car is literally roadworthy.
we all share this responsibility.
Yeah.
So, I mean, the government's responsibility is to give us the roads that we need.
Yes, it's true.
And to, of course, hopefully have it laid out correctly and perfectly smooth.
well,
so we can drive those
Yeah.
nice vehicles that we all have. But, yeah, I mean, in theory, it's really important that we all feel responsible that when we get on the road, we have other Filipino drivers
Yeah.
and we have other people on the road that are sharing the space. So it's going to be very difficult for all of us to be certain if we're not testing these vehicles.
Yeah.
That's true, because I think one point that I'd love to make on our reviews is that when a car is getting better, or even a motorcycle for that fact is getting better, the fact is that let's just say us as Filipinos, we deserve better than pwede na yan. And that's why cars are getting better, and it's getting better equipped. It's much more. It's safer. It can last longer in between servicing and whatnot. And the truth is, if we as Filipinos deserve better from our automobiles, then we should at least be accountable to make sure that these cars are better for everybody else on the road as well.
Yeah.
So, as Yogesh said, we're sharing responsibilities
But
here.
So I'd like to say that me personally, and of course a lot of the other MVIC owners, we understand that COVID was, traumatic for all of us, and it's financially damaging to a lot of people, right? But the timing of this program was supposed to be set in 2018. 2019, we were tasked to build our centers. 2020, at March 30, we were supposed to have like 25 to 30 operational already by then.
Yeah.
But we all went into lockdown, right? And then by the time we got to recover, we were trying to open sites. LTO was having public consultations on Zoom with various groups in various regions
So they
constantly.
did have
Yeah, so that
consultation.
actually is one of the things that is being mentioned, that they demand a public consult, or people are demanding public consults. I will tell you that there were several in each region because it's part of the process. No step of the process was undid or was not followed in this. Every region had a public consult, and you can check with your own LTO. They'll probably have a video of it or it's probably on Facebook Live, because we had everything that was on there. But yes, there was a ton of public consultations with this. Not everybody was, of course, invited. Not everybody was able to attend.
Yeah.
But yes, there was a bunch of public consults, and I guarantee you that a lot of the consumer sentiments were aired.
Okay. Well, I want to frame this properly, Kako,
Yes.
guys, because if people are not familiar with what's going on, there were a lot of pushback in social media, in other forms of media, because of certain vehicles that did not pass. Certain new vehicles that did not pass. Clearly less than 5 years old, or even 15 years old, as you mentioned, no? Right. And it just spread. It spread like wildfire on Facebook and online.
Yeah.
And I guess that's kind of sparked a little bit of the fire against this whole operation.
Yeah.
So I know you're not with the LTO, but you do work with them. You do work.
Well, I work with an association of motor vehicle centers.
Yeah.
We're kind of like the collating body of all the information and the regulations that we're all trying to get sorted out. I will tell you that I was personally aware, made aware of these concerns. To name one, the Land Cruiser. I had
the Land Cruiser.
I
correct.
had a great conversation with Vince of Auto Industria.
Yeah.
So he wanted to hear our side. We had a full-blown conversation about what happened. And what happened was the car, or the sound meter, recorded a abnormal reading of 600 decibels, which is basically as loud as an atomic bomb.
Hang on. So basically what Yogesh is talking about is, I don't know if everybody is aware of this, but there was a Land Cruiser that entered a motor vehicle inspection center. And one of the tests that were conducted is to make sure that the car does not exceed a certain amount of decibels.
99
decibels. And this Land Cruiser, I don't know how it did it, but it registered 600 decibels, which is, as I was told earlier, that's basically an atomic bomb, dude. Or Gino when he gets out of bed. So when it registered that 600, nobody knew for sure if it was actually the car that was producing that much noise or if it was because of the surrounding environment that the car was in.
So you have to remember that the sound meter acts like a microphone. So I can only speculate because I wasn't there. The abnormal reading was probably caused by the technician grabbing the sound meter because you got to move it around so that you can get the...
But that's a peak. That's not going to be constant.
I agree. So definitely there was something that went wrong there. But the most important point that I want to drive at and what's important is it got retested immediately. There was no charge. The customer was able to register his car.
There was no charge for the
his or her car. It was registered. Right. And a few days later, I got to speak to Vince again, and Vince was able to hunt down the Land Cruiser owner.
Okay.
And it's really funny that the Land Cruiser owner was very pissed about only one thing. It was that his address was on the MVIR that was posted online.
Yeah.
And so Vince asked if it was actually him that posted it, and he said, "No, I didn't do that. I just submitted my result, and someone posted that, and that's not even his Land Cruiser's picture."
What?
So, I mean, of course, you could call Vince, of Auto Industria.
I'll call him. I know him. He's a good friend.
I believe that he will be writing something about it, or he's probably going to write something about it.
Okay.
But this is confirmed by him. So, there was also a noise barrage the other day just to argue about all of this, and they said that they had hundreds of thousands of people. But I can scientifically state that there wasn't hundreds of vehicles in that barrage.
How many were there?
Yeah.
Based on the picture that I was given, because it went to some of the sites, there's less than 35 cars.
This is based on a photograph that you saw. So you can't
Right, but you have to remember that they all had those banners on their stickers. I mean, they all had those banners on their cars, and that's what they were doing.
Okay, so we're going to get back to exactly how many and more other concerns about people. Why are people so upset about this whole situation? We're going to take a short break. We'll be right back.
Before we continue with this episode, I want to remind everybody out there that we are in the new normal. And in this new normal, it might be a little bit difficult to take public transportation. So, what is the best way to get around from point A to point B, to go to work, to go visit your loved ones, socially distanced? Well, that is taking a motorbike. And if you want to learn more about bikes, if you want to learn more about what best bike suits your lifestyle, well, you can check out AutoDeal.com.ph. We got every single brand there, all the different types of models, whatever suits your budget and your lifestyle. Check out AutoDeal.com.ph.
Cars are better.
Nope, bikes are.
So we're back talking to Yogesh Sahijwani. He is a general manager for one of the motor vehicle inspection centers. There are so many acronyms here. It's so confusing.
It's quite.
It's like MVIS, MVIC,
Well,
PMVIC, CAA, PPPP, OPP, CIA, FBI.
Yeah.
DTI, DOTR, LTO.
Well, we like to make things.
DMZ.
We're trying to make everything short, right? That's basically what this
ABS,
is.
CBN. Wala na pala yun, sorry.
Yeah.
That was even shorter.
Yeah.
You said like short 5 times and looked at Kako. Just love it.
Dude, wow.
It's kind of difficult to have short jokes. Right?
2021, dude. Let's move on.
Okay. It's hard.
Yeah, it is hard.
Yeah.
So you can just step over me. Okay, so we're getting back to why so many people are pissed about this entire situation. And they're not just pissed about the new inspection system, but there's also backlash to the people that run these centers, these motor vehicle inspection centers. Well, because they're taking the brunt end of it simply because they're privately run. And they don't believe that these centers are in the best interest of everybody.
Right.
Whereas we pointed out earlier that they actually are, because they're just trying to make sure that the cars are roadworthy. So making the cars roadworthy, I don't think is an issue at all, because everybody wants to be safe. But it might be an issue to some people that have much older vehicles. So yeah, but for the general public, I don't think that's their main concern. I think their main concern would be the price itself and the amount of, let's say, for example, the price is one. The fact that there are not enough testing centers in the Philippines, which currently is about 130 plus, less than 150, something like that. And the fact that it doesn't also incorporate everybody. And when I say everybody, not just private vehicles, but public utility vehicles as well, as like jeepneys and whatnot. So why don't we tackle some of those issues right now? Let's start first, Yogesh. Tell us about why it is 1,800 pesos to be able to go to the test center and have these tests done. And why is it every time you fail and you redo it, it's half the price, which is $900.
Okay, so I'd like to correct you first.
This guy here correcting me on my own show.
I apologize. But it's facts that we need to get out.
Okay.
So cars are 1,500 plus VAT.
Okay.
Okay. Motorcycles are 600 pesos plus VAT.
Okay.
All right.
So sorry.
I would like to. I would just before you say anything. I would like to tell you that adjustment in pricing was because of the numerous public consultations.
Okay. All right. So I got a question though.
Sure.
The motorcycles, it's regardless of the displacement.
Yes.
Cars as well.
Cars, basically, the way they did it was up to 4,500 pounds, you have to come to an MVIC, which basically covers up to canters.
Okay.
That's weight. But Gino was asking about displacement.
Oh, I get what you're saying. For motorcycles, we're fine. I'm talking about cars.
Yeah.
For cars, they only do it up to 4,000. Anything below 4,500 pounds, you need to go to an MVIC.
All right. So it's like the licensing, right? You have a non-pro something one for under 4.5.
So now going back to the next question, why is it 900 or why is it half for a retest?
Yes.
Okay, so think of us as conveyor belts. All right, our system is designed. It's called a test lane for a reason. It's a lane, and we're supposed to be testing 3 vehicles on the lane simultaneously.
Okay.
So 1 vehicle on stage 1, 1 vehicle on stage 2, and 1 vehicle on stage 3. Each of the stages is supposed to move every 4 minutes.
Okay.
All right. Now here comes a retest, right? That you only have to do in stage 3. So what happens is it breaks our whole system apart.
Okay.
Okay. Now, if you're comparing the pricing compared to the LTO emission testing, which is currently 500 to 600 pesos, depending on what they want to charge. Cars are far. I get it. But we're also checking 72 items compared to 1.
Yeah.
So it's actually not really a comparison because we're doing a full-blown blood test compared to a temperature reading.
Oh, I like this. You're comparing it to COVID. Okay.
Fair enough. So, yes, so we are the RT-PSR, and they basically are temperature reading.
The gun.
The gun, which is kind of pointless. Well, to an extent.
LTO and DOTR thought that way, or we are just expressing what the program is entailing.
Yeah. So you mentioned the LTO and DOTR. How much conversation did you have with them in order to come up with this whole thing?
Well, I mean, as I said, it's been pending for 20 years.
So it's...
I mean, the MVIC program has been pending for the last 20 years. It's just always been put on the back burner. In 2018, Secretary Tugade decided that it was time to upgrade all of these because he was already getting... so another statistical fact that you guys should keep in mind is 2017, there were like 60-something thousand accidents on the road.
Yeah.
2018, it's above 110. So we increased by almost 50 or 60%, right, in a 1-year period. Wow. I also want to tell you that we are currently selling in the Philippines, even in a bad year last year, Campi recorded numbers of 250,000 light vehicles being sold. Then we're not even considering how many motorbikes are being sold and not registered.
Yeah.
So you can imagine the sheer numbers that we're talking about.
Yeah.
You know? So in that context, you know, DOTR has been planning this for a really long time. You also mentioned earlier the inclusions.
Yes.
And the number of centers.
Correct.
So DOTR and LTO also have addressed that. You can go to their DOTR Facebook page or their LTO Facebook page. They've launched another 210 locations or 210 sites that will be supposed to be bid out by the mid of this year.
Okay.
And that means it'll take us if we're all built together, we'll probably have 400 centers roundabout. Then there's also inclusive in the phase 2 is truck sites.
Okay.
The truck sites will be launched. They haven't launched that memo yet, but they've been having discussions about it for a long time that trucks also have to be tested. But the IRRs of that is the implementing rules and guidelines aren't out yet.
Yeah.
Okay.
So yes, there will be plenty more centers coming. It just so happened that COVID stopped a lot of our work.
Yeah.
It stopped a lot of construction.
Yeah.
Because that's primarily what this is. And then so I really think based on the numbers that we can do, we can test around, as I said, 700 to 800 vehicles a day. We were basically made by DOTR to be ready to operate Monday to Sunday from 6 a.m. to 10 p.m., 2 shifts, so that we can accommodate all our
2
vehicles.
shifts.
10 p.m.
10 p.m.
Wow.
Well, so another thing that we'd like to get out there is we were also required to have appointment systems. So all of our centers actually are capable of accepting online appointments and online payments so that you don't have to deal with fixers.
Aha.
Yeah.
And there are a lot of people that are going to be upset because
Hence the noise barrage.
hence the noise barrage. You're telling me that the noise barrage is basically all the fixers?
I can only speculate, but I mean, you have to remember that there's a huge ecosystem that's going to be shifting force.
Yeah.
From the emission testing centers to the TPL insurance salespeople, those are going to be affected, right? I mean,
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
only common. It's
Yeah.
already being affected now, but
Yeah.
it's going to get to a situation. So we're changing a lot of things. LTO has actually taken one more step. They have something called the LTMS portal. So if a customer actually goes through an MVIC,
Yeah.
they will be forced to register onto the new database of LTO, which is called the LTMS.
Okay.
And the LTMS is covered by the Privacy Act. Basically means you yourself will be encoding your vehicle's details. And then you will print that document. You will go with your insurance and your MVIR pass result, and you'll go directly to the LTO cashier and just pay and leave. There's no more talking to anyone from LTO about what you want done. There's no more fixers outside that you need to talk to so you can get your work done without waiting.
Yeah.
All of this happens
Properly.
properly online.
Yeah.
So
That is...
so LTO has taken every one of their comments and actually worked out the system. It's just that we're implementing it now.
Yeah.
And because of the backlash, it's getting harder to implement because we'd like to get it free flowing. So if
Yeah.
you come to
Yeah.
our centers now, while my customers are waiting, the 12 minutes they wait is them encoding their data into the LTMS portal so that when they go to LTO, they don't have to wait in line.
Yeah.
They just
Okay.
go, show their documents, pay, and leave.
Yeah, because I want to address the backlash
Yeah.
really quickly here because we've seen it in the past, specifically with the LTO and the DOTR, that there have been, I guess, stuff that they've implemented or stuff that they've suggested that turn it like the anti-distracting law is one,
Okay.
right? And it became such a heated debate or the heated topic again on social media because even if you have, let's say, your phone at a certain point, right? You have your phone in your car and it's showing you Waze or Google Maps or whatever.
Yes.
You're just using it for
Yes.
You're just using it for your directions.
Or in Jack's point, he's just watching something really nasty.
Yeah, well, you're not supposed to do that, right? So, but for just specifically for the maps, right? And that became an issue because they said, "Oh, you have to put it below the dash." So you're looking down and looking up. I mean, it makes things a little bit more dangerous.
It does.
Right?
Because your eyes need to refocus.
And then you look at some of the public utility vehicles, and then they have this whole life.
it's an ecosystem.
It's their ecosystem on the dashboard, and you're like, how the fuck is that okay? And this is not.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So there is that thing with the LTO and DOTR, right? I mean, I know you don't work for them, but but I think a lot of the backlash is because this is, in the mind of a lot of people, it's like, ito na naman. There's something else that these guys are doing that's a little bit questionable.
Yeah.
And then look what's happening now. And then parang it's just basically what I'm saying. is like, is it conceivable that the people with the backlash who are pushing against it is partly because they're sick and tired of all of these things that the LTO and DOTR have implemented and then pulled back on and then implemented again and then pulled back on?
Well, I can say a lot of people might think that way because a lot of people, including you and I, we
Yeah.
could be jaded, you know,
Sure,
because of all
that's
these
why.
things.
That's the whole point, right?
Yeah.
Are we so jaded? Are people so jaded that one thing that, let's say, because I'm sure the LTO and DOTR have done positive stuff
Yes.
that are being overlooked.
Yeah, correct.
Right? But people want to harp on the negatives.
Well,
Or on
'cause it's a lot easier to
It-
harp on the,
it is.
the
True.
one negative.
Yeah,
I mean,
true.
it's very clear and concise
Yeah.
what you want to talk about when you hate something.
Correct,
Or you
yes.
don't like it. You also have to remember that, as I said earlier, we realize, us MVIC owners, that any change is going to accept resistance.
Sure.
Yes, true.
Right. And
yeah.
I got to tell you, I've been working on my site for the last month, right? And I actually am on the floor a lot. Basically, I talk to the customers, I explain what's wrong and how they failed and whatsoever. And I got to tell you, the only reason that they've ever had an argument with me is because first they got to pay a retest fee,
Yeah.
yeah.
right? But I've never had anyone tell me that the project or the program isn't worthwhile.
Sure.
I've also had the other end of the spectrum. I've had customers come in and say, you know, we've never had anyone tell us what's wrong with our vehicles. We're always dependent on talliers to tell us.
Sure.
Yeah.
But we only go into the tallier to tell him what's wrong with my car, what I'm feeling. But he
Yeah.
never went into the whole full depth of saying, you don't have this.
Correct.
You don't have this. And so there are some customers that are not as as car savvy as we are, that are actually using the MVIC as like their basic preventive maintenance,
Correct.
right? And I got to tell you that in the first month that we've been operating and the number of fails that we've been seeing, we average around 15 to 20% failure rate
Okay.
currently right now.
So
Across the centers.
That needs to be retested.
That needs to be retested.
Okay.
Right? And most of them are primarily brakes and headlights,
Wow. That's dangerous.
right?
Very.
So I'd like to put this in context of everyone that's against this. Think of yourself driving, right? And knowing in your mind that 20% of the cars around EDSA
Don't have brakes.
don't have
Brake
No,
lights.
they have brakes.
Yeah.
They have
brake
brakes,
lights.
but they're not going to brake in time,
Yeah. Sure.
right?
Yeah.
So I'd really like to, I'd like for you all to keep that context in mind when you're driving. Now, you know, people like to stay right, they like to tailgate,
Yeah.
right? Keep in mind, 20% of those cars or 20% of those motorcycles, when they're forced to brake, it won't react as fast as it should. And if it doesn't react as fast as it should,
Bump.
Yeah.
exactly your point.
Yeah.
Right? Now, I got to tell you, for the motorcycle drivers out there, the Filipinos or most people have a tendency to use the front brakes.
Which you should.
So the front brakes are constantly replaced,
Yeah.
right? And they're always functioning. But it's always the rear brake that fails because the Filipinos are so used to
The front brakes.
the front brakes that they always think that the rear brake's fine because they are basically subsidizing the rear brake
Yeah,
with
yeah.
the front brakes.
Yeah.
So it's a shock to them when they walk into our center that my brakes work perfectly. I can stop, watch. But I keep pointing out that it's not the rear brake you're using your front brakes. So your front brakes work perfectly, but your rear brake isn't working at all.
So the point here is that even if you don't use your rear brake, and this is just an example because you can apply this with cars as well, but even if that's one system that is there on your automobile, even though you don't use it, it should actually still be working
Yes.
properly.
Yes, because what if your front brakes give way?
Yeah. Correct.
You have to remember, when you check roadworthiness, we're not checking it to drive on a Sunday afternoon beautiful drive. We're not doing that. We're doing it because we want to have you driving in a typhoon-induced weather and you're hydroplaning, and I want you to be able to be safe for everyone else around you that you're driving with, because that's the responsibility we all take when we buy a vehicle, because we are sharing the roads with everybody else.
True.
Yeah.
It's a
Right.
privilege.
Now you also have to look at the customer point of view, that for the last 20 years, they've just been
Yeah.
used to pay the emission fee.
Yeah.
Oh, I failed. Okay. Take another 15 minutes, stick a mop in there, take a tube out, clean my muffler, and then 10 minutes later go back in there and I get to pass.
You know, funny that you mentioned that, because I know that some of the people that are making noise are the CAMPV. Is that it, or the Clean Air Movement of the Philippines?
Yes.
Okay.
Well, basically, that's the Association of Emission Testing Centers.
Okay, but their main concern is to make sure that whatever cars, carbon monoxide cars produce is not enough and it's harming the environment, right? So these are the people that are also are up in arms about these testing centers. Have you ever had a communication, or rather a conversation rather, with these people to say that if indeed you are closing down emission centers, testing emission centers, that they can in fact join your group so that they can watch over this?
Well, I mean, I think that would be a bit of a conflict, because you would be telling a business owner that I'm going to be taking your employees. That's basically what you're trying to tell them. Secondly, I want to be very clear. Emission testing centers aren't being forced to close.
They're not.
What's happening now is LTO and DOTR are phasing them out. When I say phasing them out, which basically means light vehicles, motorcycles first, trucks next, public utility vehicles after, and then basically everybody will be covered by the MVIC, so there's no unfair treatment in any sector of vehicles.
But they're still closing.
Well, they've had 20 years to be a stopgap measure, right? Secondly, their main function, or their primary function, is a part of our test, right?
Yeah.
So the emission is becoming redundant.
Yeah.
So in some centers, actually, some of the concern that's being raised by other areas is, I'll give you an example of Cebu. The MVIC, or the customers, are being forced to get a PETC result and then go get an MVIC result. It's causing
Confusion.
confusion, because the PETCs are not informing customers that we shouldn't be doing this anymore.
Yeah.
They're still taking your money and then they're registering you somewhere else.
Yeah. Yeah. But what I can't get, what I can't understand, why the public utility, the Jeeps, are not included in the first batch.
Yeah, dude, that's a good question.
Why
So
isn't it?
I will tell you this.
That'll piss me
Well,
off.
first, because of the sheer numbers of motorcycles and light vehicles.
Yeah.
I mean, for any business or any operation, they look at the number of accidents first. That was considered. And they look at the total number of vehicles. The total number of vehicles between light vehicles and motorbikes completely take like 70 or 80% of the pie,
Yeah.
right? So by covering light vehicles and motorcycles, they've already essentially covered 80% of the pie. Second reason why they didn't send jeepneys to us is because it's highly improbable that they're going to pass. I would be
Extremely.
I would be very worried to put them on the equipment, because I'm worried that the pressure that my equipment puts on a car,
Yeah.
because you have to remember, I am simulating road conditions,
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct.
right? I don't think they're going to pass. They don't have above carriage pa lang.
Yeah.
I don't see how they're going to pass.
Hence why people are pissed. People are pissed thinking, okay,
You're-
yung kotse ko, why does it
Yung
have to go
Land
through
Cruiser ko bawal, pero yung jeepney yung saraw na yan.
So,
Pwedeng
so
pwede.
I'm going to tell you that that's not going to be very long.
Yeah.
It's going to be short-lived. They also, LTO, as I said, has looked at it for humanitarian reasons also, right? They understand that there's a lack of jeepneys going around. So they implemented this new jeepney modernization,
Yep.
and they understand it's not enough. So they're still allowing these jeepneys to ply the roads. If they send them to PMVICs to get
done.
registered, most likely those vehicles will not be on the road again.
Sure.
So essentially, it's not you that people should be pissed at, because you're just basically doing your job. Like in instance of the jeepneys, it's the government allowing a little bit of leeway for, as you said, humanitarian reasons, and you guys are just complying with whatever it is that they're telling you.
Well, you have to remember that we can't make the rules. Our job is to implement the rules.
That's true. Yeah.
So, I mean, there are people getting pissed about the standards and whatsoever, but those standards are international. We're not we didn't just come up with those standards and say, you know what, we feel like the Philippines should be addressing this. That's not how that works. There's a list of things that we need to get checked. Some of them are excessive in my opinion, but that's what LTO felt was what was going to bring roadworthiness down. Now you have to remember, it's very simple to see the success of this program. After 1 year, or after 2 years, or after 3 years, we should actually gradually see the number of vehicular accidents go down. So if it doesn't go down in the next few years, then the project we can all scrap and say it was a waste of time.
Yeah.
But the statistics haven't even started. We're only 1 month in. Give us a year of data, see the number of transactions in terms of vehicle accidents go down, and then you'll see that why it's necessary.
Yeah.
And if not even the data from the Philippines itself, you can collect the data from other countries as well and prove
Right.
that
So
the
if you want to
system
compare it to other countries, if you go online and you check MOTs in UK, they'll instantly tell you that 40 to 50% of the initial tests fail.
works. Okay.
Right. So this isn't like a regular occurrence. The problem that we're all having
Yeah.
is that we were trained to do this for 20 years.
Yeah.
It was just a transactional requirement to get done. It's no longer a transactional requirement. It is now a comprehensive test
Sure.
that you need to pass so that you can ply the roads
Yeah.
with everyone else.
It's like, I guess it's also like getting your driver's license before and now.
Yeah.
Right?
Exactly.
Getting your driver's license before, you literally go to
yeah, now you need to do a driving school.
yeah, you actually have to take the actual
You need-
lessons.
so just to let you know, a lot of these LTOs now have equipped themselves with driving schools of 500 or 600 square meters, and they're going to force you to parallel park.
Yeah, that's good.
Oh, that's good.
That is very good.
It's basically like going to an amusement park, which I know a lot of experience with this, that you must be this tall to get on the ride.
And you always fail.
And I always fail. So it's either put on a pair of heels or find a different ride.
That's theoretically the stand. So again, going back,
I'm just letting you know that I hit myself just to be able to make the program. Okay.
Sure.
Okay. Sure. Continue. Yeah. Go ahead.
no, again going back, like we've all seen the motorcycles without the lights. We've all seen vehicles without lights.
We've all heard the truck saying that nawalan ako ng preno.
Now, like basically, the government has stepped in and said, "Okay, we don't want you to see that anymore.
Yeah.
All right,
Yeah.
we want to fix this, right?" But of course, we're so used to something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. So it's definitely, the birth pains are definitely going to be there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I just like to put that, we're not doing this to piss people off. We're doing this so that, I don't know if you all remember this rule 4 or 5 years ago that they plan to junk 15-year-old vehicles and above.
Yes. Yes.
Right. So this is the compromise.
This is the compromise.
This is the compromise. Right. So even if I understand Mayor Gatchalian is currently writing a letter to have vintage cars saved or exempted from all of this.
Yeah.
You don't necessarily need that. At least that's my professional opinion. You don't need that because all you need to do is pass the MVIC and you're good.
Hang on, it's a vintage car, so obviously it's not going to be up to par with, let's say, for example,
Emissions pa lang.
emissions, braking, and whatnot. Some of those cars are all drum, front and rear, right? So if you were to take, let's say, for example, a 1982 Starlet or whatnot that is completely restored to spec, it's definitely not going to be as to outperform, let's say, for example, a current Toyota Wigo.
Okay.
Right. So your emissions centers, do they have?
They're
let's
more
say-
than emission centers, FYI.
Sorry.
Yeah. Exactly.
The motor vehicle inspection centers. Okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
So these centers, will they have the information or the data of what the car was supposed to be able to achieve
Back in the day.
back in that day?
So that's exactly why we put up the Vico app, because some of our owners are actually vintage car owners,
Yeah.
and they're very concerned about what's going to be doing it. So we are actually looking at guidelines to save those vintage vehicles that we all love.
Mm-hmm.
But
Now-
basically, the generalization of the rule that they were trying to implement basically was because they had no way to gauge how roadworthy the vehicle was. And
Yeah.
then they implemented this, which is supposed to answer that question objectively.
Okay. So like, let's say, for example, just because it's a 1982 automobile doesn't mean that every time you step on the accelerator, there's a puff of smoke that's big enough to engulf a building that should come out of a car.
Exactly.
So it's objective. Okay.
Yes, it's objective. So yes, you will be put to a test for it. We will also tell you what's wrong with the car. We are obliged to actually explain what went wrong or what we think went wrong with your car. And we actually can recommend that you go get it fixed. We don't recommend where you get it fixed, and we don't tell you what parts you need to replace because that's not in our scope. What we're
Okay.
here for is we're basically the blood test person. I just take your test. I don't care about the results because all I need to know is I did the test based on these standards and I'm done.
Speaking of tests and scope, are you guys able to test everybody? And I mean everybody, from small cars to large trucks, and what your particular centers that you said phase one, right?
Light vehicles and motorcycles, light vehicles up to 4,500 pounds we can test, which is basically a canter.
Yeah.
Motorcycles we could test.
Yeah.
Trucks, as I explained, will be phase 2. It's coming out. And then as soon as LTO and DOTR feel the need, they'll put jeepneys and all of that through this.
I only asked this question because I don't know if you heard about this, but there was a Subaru that is said to have gone to a testing center that the testing center basically broke the Subaru because it's an all-wheel drive vehicle. Now, do you have any comments about this?
Well, first, we've gone out of our way to try to locate this owner in the center. We haven't been able to do that based on the number of... Currently, there's only like 24 or 25 of us that are open. So it's extremely difficult not to get an answer from each of them that says that.
Yeah.
Secondly, I'm going to repeat this. I did an interview with Vince about this, about four-wheel drives and all-wheel drives.
Yeah.
I want to simplify. All you need to do is put idle rollers, which is basically an extra set of rollers underneath the car's wheels, and we can test every vehicle that you want to test.
So it's possible.
Exactly.
So what is it with the Subaru saying that
Well, as I said, we're, as a group, we're trying to address and we're trying to answer every concern as fast as we possibly can, but we need to get all the information. And so far, we haven't been able to find the Subaru owner.
Say what?
We haven't been able to find this Subaru owner.
You lie.
Seriously? We've been able to find the Z4. I mean, Mr. Romero has made himself more than available to comments.
Okay.
The Land Cruiser, Vince, through Vince's help with Auto Industria, we were able to get this person on the phone and get a conversation with. The Subaru, we haven't found yet. And if I'm appealing, if we are able to find the Subaru owner, we'd love to have a conversation with him to see how we can get better and correct this.
Okay. Let's find him.
Because I own my own Subaru too.
Yeah.
And I've been doing tests on my cars for the last month and a half because I've been doing it as, preventive. And I've been able to do it. I have a Legacy and I have a Forester, and I don't have a problem with this.
Okay. Well, we're going to take a short break and wrap things up when we come back. We're going to wrap it up in the sense that I'm basically going to answer one. We want Yogesh to answer one last question, which is what we asked him at the beginning, is that we understand why a lot of people are pissed about all of this. Now, he's apparently upset too because he's been receiving a lot of backlash. So what I'm going to ask you guys when we come back is that exactly what is it that's really upsetting these motor vehicle inspection centers, and what kind of compromise can we find in the middle? So we'll be right back. Before we continue on with this episode, I'd like to remind everybody to check out AutoDeal.com.ph. We're not just all about reviews, but we also do car sales. Believe it or not, whether it's brand new or secondhand, we have them on our website. And the beauty about it is that when you go to AutoDeal.com.ph, we connect you to the dealer that is closest to you, whether you live in Luzon, Visayas, or Mindanao. Plus, you will always get the best deal with AutoDeal.com.ph. So do come check it out. So we're finally going to ask Yogesh what it is exactly that is upsetting him about all of this, about this whole MVIS, MVIC, PMVIC, CAMP, OPP, Land Cruiser. No, wait a minute, I'm reading the wrong thing. So anyway, the question still stands is that we as the general public, we know why people are upset, and we're taking it out on you guys because you're the new things, and we have to pay X amount, and you've already proven the fact that the 1.8 didn't come from you guys. It was stipulated by the government that you guys should be charging this much plus VAT, retesting fees and whatnot. There's reason for why this is happening for these centers to be up simply because of roadworthiness. So that wasn't the question. So we answered basically what it is, why people are upset. Now, the question, I'll throw it back to you. You seem to be sort of like bothered by a few things. Is it because you're at the tail end of being...
Well, I mean, so the most important thing that I think that bothers me is that we're being put out as villains in this. I'd like to reiterate that this isn't what we wanted. We just want to be road safety advocates. So we put up these centers so that we could hopefully directly affect the number of vehicle accidents on the road. Now, we, again, when I speak for we, I mean, I'm sure I feel the same way as most of the MVIC owners. Yeah. That, of course, we understand the backlash, right? We understand that it's a new thing and we're going to get a lot of people complaining because they're used to just paying one time for their emission testing fee and then they just do this transactional process and they're done. What I'm trying to point out is, or what bothers me most, is people, consumers, aren't taking this seriously enough. We have 100,000 vehicular accidents. There are people dying on the road daily because we are not being able to justify that those cars or those motorbikes are roadworthy. So I understand that we all want it. We all criticized, those cars in front of us.
Absolutely.
How did that pass? How did this do this? And we all do that. But now that we're trying to ask you to put your money where your mouth is. Okay, you want that, right? You're subjected to it too.
Yeah,
right.
Correct.
If you want me to check that car, I'm going to check your car.
Yeah.
Now, if you fail, what did you want me to do? Did you want me to write you a love letter and say and give you this? That doesn't work that way, right? So if you want the law, if you want someone to follow it, we all need to follow it, right? Now, if your car fails, right, we understand it's something new. But I will like to end with this, right? That each MVIC center or each MVIC basically is trying to implement its own solutions to help its customers pass. Some of us are doing pre-inspections already, and those are absolutely free. Yeah. So if I feel your motorbike's going to fail, before even I put you on the test, I'm already telling you, go away. So if you come to my center, we have a stop in front. We actually check your vehicle before we put you onto the test because I don't want you wasting our tack time.
Okay.
It's mutually beneficial for me and the customer that he gets pre-inspected before going to my site. If he doesn't do it, when he gets to my site, I will do it for you. And believe me when I tell you, I've been able to reduce my failure rates significantly.
Okay.
And they're happy because I didn't charge them that amount of money.
Yeah.
So as I said, we are learning and we are adjusting. But 27 days, 23 days into it, it's very hard to make that quick of an adjustment.
Kaya nyo yan, sir!
I agree, but you have to remember that we're trying to do it nationwide.
Yeah.
Right? If it was just for my center, I could change it whatsoever. And we're trying to share best practices with the group.
Correct.
So that all of us are trying to adjust. But for you to have the correct amount of data, or for you to make a correct decision, you have to have that at least sample data. Right? Now, I don't want to sound like guinea pigs, but everybody that's in plate number 1 and 2 is actually feeling the brunt of this. Yeah. But when you get down to 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, a lot of the kinks will be ironed out.
Yeah.
So we're happy in a sense that we're trying to address all of this, but there's some things being said. This is really, really unnecessary and undue. Right? So again, I'm just asking for some patience from our consumers. Right? We're all in this together.
Yeah.
Right? It's designed to be convenient to all of you. Again, we would like to reiterate that we have online appointments for most of our sites.
Yeah.
Actually, all of our sites are required to have them.
That's got to help a lot.
They're online. You can make payments online, so you don't have to deal with it anymore.
Yeah.
The fixer problem is being addressed by LTO with the LTMS portal. Right? So you can see that the process is being streamlined so that it's going to be transparent.
Yeah.
Right? Because that's what we all want. We want to be transparent.
Yes.
And we want the transparency.
Yeah.
But the transparency have a price. Yeah. Right? You have to be transparent so that everyone else is transparent with you.
People had raised that question about the transparency of the whole thing.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
So I think the LTMS portal helps it significantly because you now have, there's actually 2 steps, right? You get the test which we're willing to tell you now. And if you have any questions from any of our centers, we have technicians that would be more than happy to sit down with the customer and go over what was wrong, right? That should add a level of transparency. And the LTMS should add a huge level of transparency because there's no more anyone to talk to.
Yeah.
You just go online, type your own details in, send it, and then go to the cashier of LTO and pay, and you're done.
How about the people who are not able to go online to do that? They physically have to go there.
So on my site, again, best practices. In my site, I handed out 3 tablets. So while you're in my customer lounge, I will give you free Wi-Fi. You access the LTMS portal. So before they leave my site, I make sure that they've already done the LTMS portal so that when they go to LTO, there's no more waiting.
Yeah.
Okay.
How many centers are there currently open right now?
Currently,
130
there's
something?
Well, so phase 1 was a total of 138 franchises awarded.
Okay.
Out of which 25 are currently open.
Okay.
There's going to be, I think by the end of March,
25.
will be around 40.
25 for millions and millions of cars.
Well, you have to remember that
Hassle.
they're implementing it currently per district office,
Yeah.
as I mentioned earlier. So it's not really such a big hassle yet, right? But
Yet.
what's going to happen is once they're open to the 138, phase 2 will come in. We'll have to wait another couple of months.
Yeah.
So we're actually gearing, or I really hope that by 2022, I know that sounds far, but we'll have like 400 or 500 centers up.
It's not that far considering we've been locked down for a year, so it's not really
Right,
that
so-
far.
How many groups run it? How many owners are there? How many?
Well, so the way LTO did it is you are not allowed to have more than 3 centers.
Okay.
Unlike the previous emission testing centers when one guy could basically
Own
own
it. Yeah.
a whole area of 40 or 50 of them and just
Okay. Yeah.
do what he wanted. So we are, by guidelines, set to just 3.
Okay.
Based on the list of the 138, there's probably only 1 or 2 people that actually got more than 2. So it's very spread out. The group, contrary to the belief of a lot of people, there are PETC owners included.
Okay.
Yes, there's a significant amount of our group is previously emission testing owners. Actually, still currently emission testing owners are some of them. Car dealership owners. We have a few of that in our group.
Car dealership owners as well.
Yes. So you can imagine that the technical aspects that we are looking at and the technical skills that we have are not just some chimay on the road. We have NC2 technicians as requested by TESDA, and we're actually now implementing training per site as a group so that we all have standards that we can all live by. We're basically making these franchises so that everywhere you go,
Yeah.
you get the same treatment. That was the goal.
That's the
ultimate
absolutely.
goal, is that you get the same treatment and you get the same review from all sites.
Yeah. You know what? I think after talking to you today, it definitely you can appreciate it, right? You can definitely appreciate it. So, and I think I'm sure in the next couple of weeks, maybe months, you're gonna probably need to do a couple more public speaking stuff, just to
quell any suspicions.
just to get it out there, and because and hopefully you being on different platforms, different websites, this podcast as well.
Yeah.
Hopefully that helps.
I think my goal or our goal right now is just to try to educate people that don't buy into everything that you hear immediately. I know it's being sensationalized because we're the new shiny toy that everyone can yell at.
Yeah.
I mean, that's theoretically it. And it's part of every vehicle's existence. So it's definitely something that's going to affect everyone, especially now that you need your vehicles. Right? But again, as I said, it's a responsibility of every motorist, whether it be a car, a vehicle owner, or a motorcycle, that you at least have the vehicle roadworthy.
Well, thanks for joining us today, Yogesh. I'm sure there will still be a lot of questions asked, and they might not actually be directed to Gino and I. They might be directed towards you. So for the people out there that are listening to our podcast via Spotify,
Apple Podcasts. Actually, it's also parts of it are going to be on YouTube as well.
YouTube. If you have any comments or questions for Yogesh, why don't you hit us up on the comment section of YouTube, And you know what? We're going to give Yogesh access to that so that he personally can answer them, or his team will be able to answer and quell any questions that you may have. Simply because what he wants to do is, as he mentioned, is to educate everybody about this thing. And so it's not to upset anyone. It's not to take advantage of anyone. They want transparency. They want roadworthiness. And, you know, if you want change, and it sounds baduy and cliche.
You got to be part of it.
Change starts with you, and you got to be part of it too, no?
You have to be part of the solution,
Not the problem. Yeah. Thanks very much for joining us today.
Thank you again for having me, guys. Thank you. Much appreciated.
This has been Torque of the Town on behalf of Gino Rufino. We're on every Wednesday thanks to Podcast Network Asia that powers us. And that's about it. Let's wrap it up, and we'll see you guys next week.
Peace.
Cars are better.
Nope, bikes are.
This has been Torque of the Town, a podcast produced by AutoDeal and MotoDeal. To learn more about our products and services, head on over to AutoDeal.com.ph and MotoDeal.com.ph, as well as our social media pages, and of course, our YouTube channels. Torque of the Town is powered by Podcast Network Asia and Podmetrics. See you Wednesdays at 10 a.m.